Hello everyone. This is a video, hopefully it'll be short, just to kind of walk you through Lab Zero. So this is past the point where the two machines, so the two virtual machines are working, and the assumption is that you already have them both up and running. So you have your Metasploitable machine running, and you have your Kali machine running, right? So view. Adjust window size, scale mode, auto resize. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to log in. Now the default credentials are Kali, unless you went through the setup with the ISO from using the ISO and went through the installer, then you needed to create your own account. And then when you create your own account, you can set your own password. Now, if you just added the VBox file I gave you, meaning you just set up using the ready-made VM file, then the default credentials are Kali, lowercase, right? So one good thing to do is to change that password to something more secure. So for example, I'm going to do passwd, and that's going to allow me to change my password. So passwd is going to ask you for the current password. I'm going to use Kali, and then it's asking me for a new. So I'm going to set up a more robust password that you need to obviously remember, right? So now notice in Linux, when you actually type in your password, it doesn't show you that you're typing characters, but it actually is taking the input in. So it took it and I retyped it correctly. So password updated successfully. Okay, now uh, I want to see the IP address of my Kali. So what I'm going to do is use the IP command. So I can use the IP address show, or an abbreviated version of that is just IPAS. And that shows you the IP address. And for me, this is how I set up my NAT network. I set up a 192 network. But if you set up a 10 network, your IP address in your case will be some kind of 10.0 something, right? So that's the IP address. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open a actual notepad, and I'm going to start registering things. So taking notes, because remember what I talked about. This is when you're doing your labs, when you're working as a cybersecurity defender or attacker, so a penetration tester. The most important thing to get in the habit of doing is keeping good notes as you're doing the work. And then those notes later make your life easier for recalling what you did, and then you organize them into a nice report. And you use those as the basis of putting together your report. Good reports are contingent on good note taking. So if you don't do a good job taking notes, and then later you have to try from memory to remember what you did, and you don't include screenshots and you don't include all the details that you did, your report is not going to be very good, right? So part of learning this while you're in class, while you're in college, you're actually building these good habits that in the real world, as in the job, you will be doing. So believe it or not, documentation, note taking is one of the most important skills a cybersecurity person needs to know. All right, so I'm going to put here my IP address for my Kali, which is in my case 192.168.100.5. But I'm also going to put my record my IP address of my target. So I'm going to go into Metasploitable here. The default login for Metasploitable is msfadmin. That's the username, and it's the same for the password, msfadmin. And I can see the prompt, so I'm actually logged in. And this is an old Ubuntu server. It doesn't have the IP command in it, but it does have the ifconfig command. And the ifconfig command is going to show you the interfaces and going to show you the IP address of each. The interface we're interested in is the ETH0, Ethernet 0. So as you can see there, the IP address is 192. So I'm going to go ahead and record that here. 192.168.100.4. So first proof of concept or check is I need to check a couple things. First of all, I need to check that I can talk, these two machines can talk to one another. So I'm going to use ping to ping meta2 from Kali and ping Kali from meta2. So let's do that here. So I'm going to go ahead and clear my terminal here. Clearing your terminal is useful. Very often you're going to do that. You can actually do it by typing the command clear, or you can just do the shortcut Control L. So that clears your terminal in Linux. So I'm going to go ahead and do ping -C4. And I already did this before, so it's given me the right one. So let me double check that I've got the correct IP of Meta. Yep, so that's the one. So what is this doing? This is basically yelling out, "Hey Meta, can you hear me?" Right? And it's yelling out 4 times. It's sending what we call echo requests, which are specially crafted packets that are called echo requests or echo packets that follow the ICMP protocol. And all it's trying to do is basically checking if the destination is alive, is it going to respond to us. So now sometimes the destination has ICMP blocked by a firewall, so it could still be alive, but it's not responding to ping requests to hide itself from this way of detecting whether it's alive. But in this case, that's not happened. So we expect to get everything reflected back. So you can see that it's sending 4 packets. The -C4 is specifying the count that I want to send specifically 4 packets. And it says 4 received, so 0% packet loss. So everything worked. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is do the reverse. So from the meta machine, again, Control L to clear the terminal, I'm going to go ahead and ping -C4 192.168.100.5. So it's pinging Kali, and it again successfully received responses. So that's good. That means both machines can talk to one another, and both machines have IP addresses within our NAT network. The next thing I'm going to do is from Kali, I'm going to ping the outside world, so the internet. So if you use the IP address 8.8.8.8, that's a common, a publicly known IP address for a DNS server that's provided by Google. If you don't remember this from your networking class, DNS is the protocol that allows you, it's like a lookup table between IP addresses and domain names. So when you go to your browser and you try to go to google.com, your browser deep down in the layers of networking doesn't understand what google.com means. So it asks a DNS server to say, hey, what is the IP address of google.com? And the DNS server comes back and says, the IP address is this, right? And then it sends the request to that IP address behind the scenes. You don't see that. It's seamless to you when you're doing this on the browser. You just type the domain name in the address bar and you get the page to load. But without DNS, that wouldn't work, right? So here we're going to go ahead and just ping this DNS server, and we can see I have some packet loss. So it's telling me that my internet connection is not very good, right? So I'm going to try it again. Okay, that was better. I'm in my office and the door is shut and to record this video, and I'm using the with Wi-Fi, and I think the signal in my office is not the best, so that's why probably there was a hiccup there. Okay, so what you can do, and I'm not gonna do it now because again, I'm not on very fast connection. So what you should do as one of the first steps, and I think I specified this in your lab. So part one, you had to create the machines, done. Part two is create the NAT network, and you're supposed to update. So you do the sudo apt update, sudo apt upgrade dash y. So update, if you're not familiar with this, basically Linux keeps a database of all the software that's installed on your computer. And that database keeps a list of what you have installed and what version of that app you have. And that list always can always be updated based on the most recent versions and the most recent software that's available for your distribution of Linux. So when you want to upgrade your machine, it's always important that you update that list first. So you have to always run the update command before the upgrade command. The update command basically updates the entries, the list in your database. Think of it as like the register or the record of what you should download. And then the upgrade actually goes out and fetches that software and downloads it and installs it on your machine. So always do the update before the upgrade. If you do them in the wrong order, you can cause a lot of issues with your Linux distribution, and you can actually cause it to fail or crash. So this is our checklist. Our initial checklist is that both VMs start successfully. I have them both on the NAT network, and I have these settings correct, right? So the update and the upgrade is what you would do next. I'm not going to do those because I'll just do the update because that doesn't take time. So sudo apt update, and of course it asks you for this, and now we got to remember what password I just changed to. So this is good because it actually helps me remember. So even though it looks like it's downloading stuff, notice it's not taking too long to download because it's not downloading actual packages. It's actually just downloading, it's freshening up the list of packages, right? And then notice it even gives you some more information. It says, hey, based on freshening up the list, you have a lot of stale versions of different apps on your computer. So you should really do the upgrade command. So again, we can do sudo apt upgrade dash y. Now I'm not going to do it because 1145 packages, that's going to take a while to download on this slow connection. So I'm not going to do that now. All right, so that already takes care of uh, part two. So, so part three is discovering the IP addresses. We already did partially that, the IP address show and the ifconfig. We did the ping command. You could actually do the nmap command. So the nmap command is much more comprehensive than ping command. Ping just checks if you can actually connect to that machine. Nmap is a very powerful networking tool. It's a network mapper, and it does so much more than ping. It will actually find out exactly what ports are open, what services are running on that target machine, and it will give you a lot more information. So here, if you run it with the SV, so this is going to be a version. So this is going to request to find out what version of software is running on that machine. If you don't specify the port, it will try to do the most common ports, which is like the first 1023 ports. But if you specify it, notice here dash P is how you specify a port. Port 21 is reserved for FTP service, which is a file transfer protocol. So, so let's try that. So we're gonna try that with the target machine. So again, I need to remind myself what was the target here. The target is, you can use up arrow by the way to retrieve previous commands and edit them. So I'm gonna do nmap dash sv, and then I'm gonna do dash p 21. You could put a space or you don't, it doesn't matter. And we're gonna do that. So what we're basically investigating here, we're saying go and check the port 21 on that target machine and see if there's a service running on it, what version is it? So if there is an FTP service running on, or software running on that Metasploitable, not only is going to tell me, yeah, it's running, it's actually going to tell me what version of software is it using. So it came back and it says, hey, 21 TCP protocol, the state is open. So that's good news. That means we can actually talk to that port because it's open. Not only it tells you it's open, it tells you what kind of service type it is. It's an FTP service, file transfer protocol. And it tells you what version of software it's using. It's using VSF FTPD 2.4, 2.3.4. Now, here is what's significant about this. If you're a ethical hacker like we are, or if you are a malicious hacker like we're not, this reveals very dangerous information because this tells you that that target you're trying to get into uh, has an opening for you, has a possible vulnerability that you can exploit. So usually with situations like this, you would go and do your research and find out, hey, are there any known vulnerabilities of this particular FTPD or this FTP server? The D, by the way, stands for daemon, and that's because in Linux, when you run a service, it runs as a background program, and those are called daemons. So this is usually what you would do as a hacker or ethical hacker to find out if there's a vulnerability. Now, you don't have to do that here because I can tell you for sure there is a vulnerability. There's a very known common vulnerability with this particular piece of software, and it's called the smiley face backdoor. Now, a little anecdote about the smiley face backdoor. So if you look at so we're done with part 3, by the way. So part 4, smiley face backdoor allows you to take advantage of this very interesting vulnerability. So let me give you a little history about this. So the project for creating that version of FTP, the FTP software, is an open source project. So the way it works in open source projects is somebody, a coder, somebody, a developer, decides, hey, I'm going to create this software to do something. And I want to make it open source so people can edit the code, modify the code, they can run it, they can download it for free and use it for free, right? But you usually advertise this so on GitHub or some other place, and you ask if to see if anybody wants to join in the project and help you code this project, complete your project. And then basically everybody who the team of developers that work on this get credit for creating this and they make it available. So a lot of times you end up working with people you don't truly know. These are just people who might be very skilled at writing software, and you get to know them a little bit over online, and then you decide to collaborate and you start coding. So when this project was worked on, somebody volunteered and somebody who turned out to be a very good coder, somebody who's very good developer, elite developer. And he joined in this group that were working on this, and he basically became the go-to guy. He was basically writing all the code because he turned out to be much more skilled than everybody else. So the rest of the team kind of let him take the lead on that, and they didn't pay attention or check after him uh, any stuff that he worked on. And remember, these kind of programs that you're going to create, these are going to have thousands and thousands and thousands of lines of code. So as they're being written and developed, you really, if somebody is going to check what you're doing, you need peer review. So you need other developers to actually read every line you write and double check that everything works and test what you write. And this is how it works in development teams. But clearly there was stuff that slipped through the cracks because this guy implemented or coded a backdoor in this software. And the backdoor allows anybody to actually get access using the file transfer protocol. All they have to do is when they enter a username, they end the actual username with a smiley face. Once they do that, it doesn't matter what password they put in, it will actually, behind the scenes, create a backdoor. So it opens a channel, it opens a port, and that port specifically is 6200, that only the person who knows this vulnerability or knows what this code is going to do can actually then try to connect to that port, and they will have full access to that machine. And that's exactly how it works. So Netcat, which is another very useful networking tool, utility, and it's abbreviated with NC, can allow you to connect to any port of a machine, uh, and you just have to specify the target IP and the port number and some flags, right? So the N means do not do like domain resolution, so do not do DNS resolution. And the V means verbose mode, so when you give me the results, make sure you provide as much detail in your output as possible. And and this is what we're going to do. So we're going to try this trick, and we're going to prove to you that using this, taking advantage of this vulnerability, we're going to be able, using our Kali, to completely gain control to Metasploitable, which is a Ubuntu server. So imagine this server is actually a server that a company has put up, and it's serving a website or serving files or doing a role for that company. And somebody, us, from outside the network, we find that it has this software running in it, which we know has a known backdoor. So we use these commands that we're going to use here to gain full access, or we call it rooting. So there's a lot of lingo that people use in jargon in cybersecurity. So if you get full access to a machine as if you're the root user, meaning you're like the administrator in Windows. You have full privileges to do whatever you want to that machine. You can turn it off. You can install software. You can delete software. You can do whatever you want. That's called rooting a machine or pawning a machine, right? So pawning, that's another word in cybersecurity that has an interesting history. So PWN, so pawning a machine. What does that mean? Well, there was a famous hack a long time ago where a hacker uh, hacked into somebody's machine and they wanted to leave a message to say, "Hey, I owned your machine," or "I own your machine," right? But if you look at your keyboard, you'll notice that the letter O and the letter P are right next to each other on the keyboard. So this person, this hacker, when they quickly typed own, they actually ended up leaving a message that said, I pawned your machine. So that mistake actually stuck, and then people started referring to anytime somebody completely controls somebody else's machine as pawning a machine, right? So that's a little history there. So you're getting a lot of little anecdotes and cybersecurity here in one video. All right, so let's go ahead and do it. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna from Kali, right? I'm gonna type this command. So I'm gonna try to connect. So make that bigger. So we're going to use the NC command -NV and 192.168.100 and meta. See, I'm looking at my notes. This is why it's good to have notes. My meta is .4, and we're going to specify the port. So -P, or actually, you don't use. We're not going to use -P. We're just going to put 21 here. All right, so it will actually try to connect on port 21 to that machine, which we know is open. Remember, we checked it with Nmap and we know it's open. So now look what this looks like. It looks like it's not doing anything, but actually it actually opened a connection. But think of this as like establishing a path to get to the port. But you can't really get in until you submit your credentials. So you have to actually log in. You have to provide your username and your password. So the next thing we need to do is provide the username and password. So we're going to put user, and I'm going to follow what I gave you here. You could actually remember, it doesn't matter what you actually put in, as long as you end it with the smiley face, it will work. But we'll do COMP305 smiley face, and then pass. Again, you can put anything you want. I think I had training here. Okay, now this should have already opened a backdoor. So I can open another terminal, or I can open a tab within this terminal. So there's another tab there. Or I could completely separate it out. It doesn't matter. It's up to us. So, this is a chance for me to tell you about a few shortcuts. So if I want to open a whole new terminal, I hit Control Alt T. If I want to open a tab, another tab within the same terminal, I hit Control Shift T. Right? So Control Alt T is going to open another terminal window. And I'm going to go ahead and increase the font by doing Control Shift and the plus sign. And now let's go ahead and see if we can connect again to the same machine using NC, but this time I'm going to connect to port 6200, which we know that vulnerability should have opened that port. In fact, if I actually do the nmap command again, it should now show that 6200 is open, but I'll have to specify to scan that port, right? Because automatically it will just scan the first 1000. All right, so let's see. So we're going to do the same command, but we're going to try to connect to 6200. So nc minus nv 192.168.100.4 6200. Now, I'm already connected. Let's see, it says it's open, so I'm connected and it's waiting for me to type in what are commands. So this is like already establishing connection and it's waiting for me to type commands. The good news is that this is not the FTP port, so I don't have to actually provide credentials to be able to do anything. This is a backdoor that was created by the guy who coded this backdoor into the software. So now I'm already in. It's as if I'm sitting in front of the Metasploitable. It's as if you're sitting in front of the server or you're connected to this server remotely. And anything I can type in here and do, I can now do from here. So I'm going to show you some cool things here. So I'm going to do who am I? So this is asking like, identify which user am I now? Now you would think that that should show that I'm the Kali user. That's true if you do it in another tab. So if I open another tab in Kali and I do who am I, it's going to tell you, hey, you're Kali, you're the user Kali. But if I do who am I here, look what it gives me. Root. Why is it telling me root? Because actually it's not executing who am I on the Kali machine, it's executing who am I on the Metasploitable machine. Look, who am I? It's the MSF admin, which is a root user, by the way. And now what I can do is I can type some other command. So for example, I could say ID. So it tells you that you're the root user and this is your group ID, this is your user ID. I can put ls, which basically lists what directories are currently and where I am. So look at these directories. These directories are not on Kali, they're actually on this machine. And to show you that, I'm going to do some more stuff. So I'm going to put, for example, ls/home. So I'm going to look what users exist under the home directory. Now, it should show me the MSF admin user home directory. So look, there's an MSF admin, there's an FTP user, there's a service user, and there's a user there. All right, so let's try what else I gave you. So I put the ID command for you to try. We can do a lot more fun stuff than just the ID command. The ID command was just to show you that. So I'm going to show you something else. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to create a file, and I'm going to show you that I can read it from Kali. So I'm going to do echo. This is a secret message. And I'm going to save that to a file called secret.txt. So pwd shows me the current working directory. So that file was saved under /home/MSF admin. So let's see if we can actually read it. So let's see if we have that power with this hack we just did. So we're going to first see if we can ls home MSF admin. So ls lists the files in that directory. And look, it shows me the secret.txt file. And then I can say, hey, show me the content of that file. So we use the cat command for that. Look, no, I need to specify. I didn't cd into that directory. So I'm going to cd into home msf admin. And now I'm going to do ls again. Okay, so that shows me that currently I am in that directory. And then I'm going to do the cat command, cat secret.txt. This is a secret message. Look, I can read what's in that machine. Again, that servers are supposed to be always running, right? Because remember, servers usually serve stuff to to internal users or external users. They could be serving a website, or they can be serving files to an internal enterprise network. So they're intended for to run all the time. You rarely turn off or shut down servers because they're supposed to be always working and serving files or databases access or website access. So you typically only shut them down temporarily when you're doing maintenance, when you're doing updates, right? So somebody actually being able to get in and turn off your servers, that's an attack on availability, right? So let's see, can we shut down this Ubuntu server? So we're gonna do power off, and look, it sent the command, it's shutting down that server. So it's gonna shut down that machine, right? And I could do that all because I pawned that machine. I own that machine from my attacker machine, from Callie's machine, right? So this is what a hacker could do to disrupt availability, right? Obviously, somebody can restart the server, but again, for companies that depend on those servers being up, you could lose a lot of money for the downtime, and you could you have reputation damage, etc. Right. All right, that's it, folks. So that's what I wanted to show you. I went a lot more. I showed you more things since I'm doing this video. I showed you more things than what you had to do for your lab, but hopefully this now clarifies exactly the context of what you're doing in part 4. So the next thing you're going to do is basically do a snapshot and build your report. So the snapshot, by the way, every time you have a VM running, you can actually save it. So think of a backup. You backup files that are not live files. You copy them to some other location and save them, or compress them and then save them. A snapshot is like a backup, but for a live system. So I have this machine that's running right now. I can go to machine and take snapshot and give it a name. So I usually like to give you name my snapshots with a date on which I took the snapshot, because I rarely take multiple snapshots in one day. So I usually just specify the day. So I'm going to put today's date, 8/28/26. And then what this does, it's actually going to start a progress bar there, and it's going to start saving the state of this. Now, that was pretty fast on my computer. The speed of that will depend on how much memory you have and how much space you have. But it's very important for you to take a snapshot of your uh, currently working system, right? Don't take a snapshot of a VM that's not working right. Take a snapshot after you know everything seems to be working okay. That way, in the future, if something bad happens and your VM and you did some commands that destroyed or did something to your Kali, you don't have to panic because you can restore from that snapshot. And you can take as many snapshots as you want or as often as you want. Obviously, the downside is that these snapshots take up some space on storage. So they're going to take up some room on your hard drive. So keep that in mind. That's why you shouldn't take one every day. But every so often, when you do anything major, like install any new software or run something major, and you want to make sure that and everything works correctly, and you want to make sure you don't lose that state, that's when it's a good idea to take a snapshot. So if something happens after that that damages your system, then you can restore to a previously known valid state that has all the software that you want. And of course, you can do this with Metasploitable. I'm not gonna do that with my Metasploitable, but you need to do that for both. And and I think that's it. So then the next thing you need to do is make sure that you satisfy this checklist and make sure that you construct your report. And remember, I provided you with several things. The template, just follow the template. This is really your guide for this very first report. Now, it says include one concise screenshot or terminal excerpt showing the local result uh, of the approved demonstration. So, for example, uh, I could take a screenshot. So I'm going to click outside here so I can activate my host machine, and I'm going to do Alt C. In my case, I have installed a screenshot software called GreenShot. It's got this symbol here. It's a really good one. Basically, it allows you to take a screenshot, and then you can edit it, you can copy it, you can email it, you can copy it and paste it anywhere you want. Gives you a lot of options. There are many different ones out there. You could also use some default ones. Like there are some, uh, you can use some combination of commands to actually take a screenshot within Kali. I'll let you research that if you don't know it. And you can also do, the Windows also has its own way of doing screenshots. So I'm going to go ahead and do Alt C. In my case, this won't work for you because I set up that command to work with GreenShot. And then, for example, I can go ahead and do a screenshot that shows that. And then this would be what you would include in your report, for example. So I'm just going to show you that I can actually paste it. Okay, let's try that again. My computer's spinning for some reason. I don't know why. Okay, let's try that again. So, Alt C, copy to clipboard. I don't think I did that properly first time. There we go. So this will be something you could include in as part of your report. Now, my recommendation, by the way, is to give yourself much better organization. Obviously, I gave you the PDF. You can actually copy this stuff and paste it into a Word document, and then you can organize your Word document nicely and edit it and write stuff, right? Again, your report is not expected to be long, so 1 to 2 pages tops. You don't have to have too many screenshots. 1 to 2 screenshots will be, or whatever I told you in this being instructions. I don't remember exactly how many I specified. But you definitely want to get a good screenshot of the proof of concept. That's really the key step in this whole thing. And then you're going to do the technical reflection. And that's something that I want you to really use your own words and do it. And please don't use AI for that. This is all about you sitting down and reflecting on what you did and writing your describing it using your own words, that gets you to think about what you did at a deeper level and reflect on it, and that teaches you a lot more. And that tells me a lot more about how well you understood the activity versus asking AI to write that 100, 150 words, right? So please write your own words. It's only 100 to 150 is not much. It's basically a paragraph. And again, I said keep the report to one page and not more, no more than 3 screenshots or terminal excerpts, right? So a terminal excerpt, by the way, is basically a screenshot or or a copy of something you did within the terminal. So for example, instead of taking a whole screenshot, I could just copy just I could just highlight this and control C and or right click actually, copy, because you have to do control shift C in the terminal. And then I can go in there and include that in my report, for example, whatever it applies, of course. I'm not organizing the whole thing. So that's what you call a terminal excerpt versus a screenshot. So this is a screenshot, this is a terminal excerpt. So you can use a combination of these to make sure you include and document what you did. All right, folks, I hope this clarifies how Lab Zero is supposed to be completed and what we're doing exactly in Lab Zero and what you're supposed to learn from it. And I look forward to reading everybody's report. All right, so we'll go ahead and stop the video here. Thank you for watching. I hope this is helpful.